So I spent a couple of days in Stockholm, so let's see what I got up to. It's mainly food markets and museums. Getting to Stockholm, I came up from Malmo via train and it was a bit of a nightmare, mostly, well, wholly down to myself. I didn't realise you had to book this train in advance. I was using Interrail and I just assumed that you could just do it as normal, but you can't. So I asked someone at the station to help me because I didn't really know what I was doing, and she was not helpful at all. It was incredibly rude and dismissive. It seems like I was really inconveniencing her. Basically said I would need to pay for a full price train ticket in first class as well. And this would have been £150, which was not what I was expecting. I was trying to explain to her I was using Interrail and with that the tickets are cheaper, but I couldn't work out like how to book it. But yeah, she didn't really care at all. She actually walked away while I was midway through a sentence. I think an issue I had was on the Interrail website, it does tell you how to book it. You have to book it through the train provider, but the directions didn't match what you actually had to do. I kind of sat around for a bit in a bit of a panic, and then I asked another member of staff and she was really helpful. She showed me which box to click essentially. So the next train was in 3 hours, but instead of being £150, it was only £10. I actually thought the SJ app itself was really great. SJ is just a rail company over there. So the SJ app, it tells you which platform you need to go to, where to stand on the platform. It had visuals too. It was really great. After all that, Stockholm. I have been to Stockholm before and I loved it. It was my favourite Swedish city until I went to Malmo, which I think might have overtaken it. So I'll start off with what I ate in Stockholm. So I went to Östermalm food market. It was very expensive here. One place had fish and chips for 25 quid. Although this food market was quite big, it felt like it didn't really have much variety. I did get a pistachio gelato from Betsy Sandberg, which was phenomenal. It was really creamy, and I tend to avoid pistachio things because they can have a really fake and artificial taste, but no, this was so good. So I don't know, maybe it's just that things are more expensive, but their quality's better. I did want to go to Hornstull food market, but as I was on the bus to get there, it just started pouring down in heavy rain, so I actually didn't go. I sheltered in a cafe kind of nearby called Baggery Pomona. This is quite a cute little cafe. It had quite a small menu. There was only 2 sandwiches on there. I had a tomato sandwich in a cheesy roll, which I actually enjoyed more than I thought I would. So I got an iced latte. It was pre-made. There didn't seem to be any like barista coffee there. £7.25 for the sandwich and iced latte, which I thought was actually quite a good price. It was a really nice place to stop in. It had a nice vibe to it. All the customers seemed to know each other, so it had a nice friendly atmosphere. So next up is Bastard Burgers. It seems to be a common thing with me that I'd go to somewhere that I think's independent, but it's actually part of a chain. It reminded me of a Great Berg place near where I live, which is independent, so I just kind of assumed it would be as well. This was not good at all. So it cost £15.40 for the meal. So it was burger, fries, and a can of Sprite. And I don't know, I feel like because it's a chain, that seems like quite a lot, but in this type of place, I don't know, that feels all right. I kind of feel conflicted about the price, whether it was good or not. I mean, it wasn't good for me because I didn't like it. I got a Beyond Texas, which is essentially a vegan barbecue burger. Bun was dry. The chipotle dressing that was supposed to be on the burger was essentially non-existent. Got barbecue sauce for the chips and the barbecue sauce was awful. It had a really horrible vinegary aftertaste. I mean, on a positive, the fries were nice. I would avoid Bastard Burger. Maybe the meat burgers are better, I don't know, but yeah, the one I had wasn't good. So next up is Sweets by Camilla. At the time I didn't know, but this is a cafe owned by Camilla Hamid, who is a YouTuber and food blogger. I assumed she was quite well known because, I don't know, it's just on the TV, there's lots of videos of her doing baking things, so I assume that she probably had a TV show or something. The place that I went to was very small. I think they've opened up a bigger one since. But with this one, I had to wait outside because there was really no room inside. It didn't help that they had like an aircon tube going through the cafe, so that took up quite a lot of room. It took a long time for me to be served with the amount of people there. So there was 4 people in front of me and it took 20 minutes before I actually ordered. Main thing here is cookies. There were other things that were being sold, but cookies seemed to be the main focus. When I got up to the counter, I could kind of work out why it took 20 minutes. There was only 2 staff members there. I don't know the ins and outs of the place, but it just seemed odd having one person making the cookies and one person serving. I don't see why the person making the cookies couldn't help out the person serving just to clear out the place a little bit. The shelves were full, so I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. Maybe someone called in sick or something. And the person that served me was really lovely and really friendly. All the cookies looked and sounded really good, so I had a tough time choosing. So I asked the member of staff what she would recommend. She said her favourite was like a brownie cookie with caramel in the middle, so I went with that. I also got an iced vanilla oat latte, which was alright. It was okay. It was quite bog standard coffee. So the cookie was £3.35. and the iced latte was £4.65. Price for the iced latte was okay, but the cookie being £3.35 was a lot. It had to be a really good cookie. This cookie was so good. I think it would have been one of the best cookies I've ever had if it were not for one thing. I think the salted caramel was too salty. So it was kind of just dolloped in the middle. If it had been spread all over, I think it wouldn't have been so bad, but because the salt was basically concentrated in one bit, it just was too much. But I love the texture of the brownie cookie itself. It was so rich and it was so chocolatey. It was so good. I would actually go back here to try the other cookies. I wouldn't get an iced latte though. So next up in this section, I'm just gonna go through what I did. Start off with Gamla Stan, which is the old town of Stockholm. It is so beautiful here. Buildings themselves, and it's surrounded by water. It's so picturesque. It's super Instagrammable. It is quite bumpy here and quite hilly, so people in wheelchairs or people that struggle to walk might find it hard here. It was busy when I went, which was on a Sunday. Lots of places were shut as well. There are a lot of American tourists too, some of which were loudly complaining about the prices in the gift shops. As someone pointed out to them, you're in the most touristy part of the town, the prices aren't going to be cheap. Mum was also moaning that she couldn't pay US dollars in a certain gift shop. There was another gift shop that did allow people to pay US dollars, but they kind of upped the exchange rate. She even told them that's what she was doing and they were like, fine, just take my US dollars, I don't have krona. I didn't know they were doing the changing of the guard on this day too. I was walking through where it happens. This was probably about 40 minutes before the actual change of the guard and it was very busy. So if you want to go see it and have a front row seat, you have to get there quite early. While I was in Gamla Stan, I went to the Nobel Prize Museum. This was £10 to get in. This place is very, very small. It was fascinating, but it was lacking displays. I joined a guided tour when it was about halfway through. In total, the tour lasted for 30 minutes. So the guide clearly had a lot of interest in the topics and the people that she was discussing. And I like the fact that she also highlighted some lesser known names. Without the guided tour, I would have been peeved about the price. It probably would have taken me about 15 to 20 minutes to go around the place. But because the tour guide was so good, I didn't mind the price in the end. One thing I learned was that Nobel Prize winners sign underneath the chairs in the bistro, and you actually can go on there and sit on them. I think they have a chart with whose name's where. I would recommend going here, but purposely go at a time when there is a guided tour. Next up is the Abba Museum, which I thought was a huge disappointment. So I enjoyed the museum last time I came to Stockholm, but this time I thought it was quite awful. It was £26 to get in, which was way too much. For the positives, I liked the Abba Voyage section. That was really cool, and I love looking at all the costumes in the hall that they have. Also, like the creepy dolls and the cursed images. But with those positives, they don't justify the price. There were some interactive things, one of which didn't work. A few of these interactive things were quite long. It didn't help with the fact people would dawdle while like doing it. And then people with kids were trying to push to the front. I could feel myself actually getting in quite a bad mood while I was here. I was really getting frustrated with other people. And there were a couple of bits of dead space too, or it was just filled with like a projector showing videos I could find on YouTube. Maybe this would have been funner in a group, but even then, it still has issues. The gift shop was really expensive too. I feel like the whole place is just so overpriced. I can't see how they justify £26. Personally, I would avoid this unless you're like a huge Abba fan and you haven't done this before. You know, I'm an Abba fan and I don't know, this time it's just really naff. I didn't like it. So next up is the Viking Museum. So it's £14 to get in here. There are guided tours here at certain times, which unfortunately I missed. But there's also audio guides available as well. So here it was very wordy. The displays looked cool, but each one had like an essay next to it. I did start to lose interest at the end. Little did I know what was waiting at the end. The highlight of this place. This museum has a ride. No drops or anything, it's a flat ride. You follow the saga of Viking Rangfrid. I think it was available in a few different languages. I think it said 9 in total. I actually really enjoyed this ride. I know it probably sounded a little bit sarcastic, but I really had fun on here. It lasts for 11 minutes, but it felt like a lot shorter. Rangfrid the Viking was actually really annoying and I was rooting against him. Yeah, I really liked it. It was entertaining. Did it justify the £14? Probably not. I'm not sure if the ride was wheelchair accessible though. I'm pretty sure it was because you could like loan a wheelchair, so I assume they would make it accessible. Also, the toilets here were gender neutral as well. So lastly is the Swedish History Museum. It costs £11, which I thought was a fair price for the amount of stuff there. So there were different sections which include Viking, prehistoric, economy, Swedish history, Baroque art, the Battle of Gotland and Sami culture. I did actually find it quite boring here. Most of it didn't really intrigue me. I was most interested in the bit about Sami culture, however most of it was missing. I assumed it was because they were changing exhibit, but there wasn't any signs to indicate that. They do tours throughout the day in the different sections of the museum, and when I went there was one for the Viking part. There was about 20 of us, which was quite a large group, and I don't think they used that size of group because the guy kept commenting on how large the group was. So the tour itself felt really rushed. He kept skipping over details and he even said, oh, we have to skip this bit today. And he said it was because of the size of the group. If you know just a little bit about Vikings, or if you went to the Viking Museum, you don't really need to do this tour because it was very surface level. I think if you need to kill a bit of time and you're not sure what to do, then maybe come to this museum. And lastly is the Swedish Army Museum. I feel like I had museum fatigue at this point because I don't know, this one was a bit boring. It was £10.50 to get in, and again, there was quite a lot. I think for the price, it's okay. It's just nothing really grabbed me. There were a lot of visuals which I liked, but again, this was very wordy. Some of it was only in Swedish as well, which did reduce the amount of words I needed to read, but it still felt like quite a lot. There's also a couple of displays on the top floor which were quite graphic. Not in a rude way, there was just chimpanzees fighting, like it's a little bit gory. I think if you have an interest in military history, this will be super interesting for you, but this was okay for me. Some parts were really interesting, like they had a bit about the guns and then some vehicles, which I thought were really fun, but yeah, most of it I just kind of just walked through because nothing grabbed my attention. So that's me done in Stockholm. I had a really fun time here. I mean, there were some disappointing parts like the Abba Museum, but yeah, overall I had a really good time. I really love the city. I love Sweden in general, but yeah, Stockholm's one that I really feel drawn to. So thank you for watching. I hope this has helped. I hope this has provided information. I know it's just me rambling for most of the time, but yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it.